Welcome to Afrosphere. Today's installment, Cartography of Greed, is the second in a series that seeks to provide context to the roots of Mozambican people's fury. The protests that have engulfed Mozambican cities and villages in the aftermath of the fraudulent election of October 2024 are not mere eruptions of spontaneous rage. They are the culmination of decades of betrayal and plunder. When Daniel Chapo, Frelimo's hand-picked puppet, fashioned from greed and cowardice, was declared the winner amidst the denouncements of local and international observers, the people did not rise up solely against a stolen election. No. The election was merely the drop that caused the glass to overflow. The rage that spilled into the streets is the rage of a people who have seen their land stripped bare, their wealth siphoned away to enrich the corrupt and powerful. It is the rage of peasants cast aside like refuse, of laborers broken and discarded, of youth whose futures have been sold to the highest bidder. This is the second installment in a series chronicling the anatomy of revolt. The previous installment laid bare the corruption that festers at the core of the Mozambican governance system. We said that corruption in Mozambique is not merely a crime. It is an affliction. It is a sickness. It is consuming cancer. A malignant rot that festers in the soul of the nation, eating away at its institutions, eroding the foundations of justice, and suffocating the aspirations of its people. It is a cancer that metastasizes, spreading its tendrils into every crevice of public life, distorting the very notion of governance until service is no longer duty, but plunder and pillage. Justice is no longer a principle, but a commodity. It corrodes the body of the nation, devouring its lifeblood, and leaving behind the decayed husk of a republic betrayed. It is a rot that has seeped into the marrow of governance, a pestilence that poisons the wellsprings of justice, education, and opportunity. From the dimly lit corridors of public offices to the dust-laden roads where traffic police lurk like highwaymen, corruption reigns, unchecked and unrepentant. In today's installment, Cartography of Greed, we delve deeper into the machinery of expropriation of land and resources from poor rural communities into the hands of Frelimo political elites in Maputo and international oligarchs. There are moments in history when men redraw the map of the world not in ink, but in blood. The ink is merely the afterthought, the bureaucratic signature on the crime. The real work is done first in violence, in betrayal, and in the whispered agreements of men who have long since forfeited their souls. So it was in 1884 at the Berlin Conference where the European powers sat down like ravenous beasts before a carcass and carved up Africa among themselves, as if the land that had cradled the earliest stirrings of humanity was nothing more than an unclaimed bounty waiting to be possessed. The tyrants of Europe encircled Africa like vultures, slashing borders across the flesh of a continent with the precision of butchers. Their knives drew blood then, but their hunger remains unsated. This time, it is not Berlin that hosts their banquet, but Maputo. And the hands holding the knives are not only foreign, they belong to men who call themselves brothers. And so it is, in 21st century Mozambique, where the political elites of Frelimo, heirs to a once revolutionary dream, have become the very thing that revolution was meant to destroy. The continent is no longer divided by foreign powers in starched collars and diplomatic uniforms. It is divided from within, sliced up by the hands of men who call themselves patriots while selling the land from beneath their people's feet. What is happening in Mozambique is not simply corruption. Corruption is taking bribes, diverting funds, and the slow siphoning of wealth into private accounts. No, what is happening in Mozambique is far more insidious. It is the deliberate transformation of an entire nation into a feudal estate, where the country itself is diced and partitioned into personal fiefdoms, controlled by a political aristocracy that has long since ceased to serve the people. These elites have looked upon their nation not as a homeland, but as a resource to be sold, a mere commodity to be parceled out to the highest bidder. The highest bidders, as always, are international corporations, mining conglomerates, and the faceless engines of global capital that require only two things from the rulers of any land: access and silence. What does it mean for a nation to be divided? It is not merely a matter of lines on a map. The divisions that matter are not drawn in ink. They are drawn in hunger, in displacement, in the quiet despair of a people who realize that the land beneath them is no longer theirs. In Mozambique, whole tracts of land are now under the dominion of Frelimo elites who operate as local barons, partnering with international mining interests while entire communities are displaced. And what are these people told? They are told that it is for development. Ah, yes, development. That magical word. That incantation that turns theft into policy, that makes dispossession sound like a necessary sacrifice. The people of Mozambique know better. They have seen what development looks like. It looks like the destruction of their villages. It looks like the contamination of their water. It looks like the roads that are built not for them, but for the trucks that carry the nation's wealth away. This is not new. This is the oldest story in the book. The same story that was told when King Leopold of Belgium turned the Congo into his personal rubber plantation, when Cecil Rhodes carved out his own empire in the lands of southern Africa, when the Portuguese, the British, the French, and the Germans all decided that Africa was not a home, but a resource. The men who rule Mozambique today would have been at home in Berlin in 1884. They would have understood the language spoken there, the quiet agreements made behind closed doors, the way in which a nation can be taken from its people with a simple stroke of a pen. They would have nodded in recognition at the way in which a government can claim to act in the interest of the people while selling them to the highest bidder. Let us be clear. The Berlin Conference was not simply about Africa. It was about power. It was about who had the right to rule and who was condemned to be ruled. And today the same game is being played, except the faces at the table have changed. The Frelimo elites sit where the Europeans once sat, and the mining conglomerates play the role of colonial administrators, ensuring that the wealth flows in the right direction. The people? The people are not at the table. They never were. In 1884, the fate of Africa was decided without a single African voice being heard, and in 2025, the fate of Mozambique is decided without a single voice from the villages, the towns, the fields, and the streets. They are not invited. They are told instead that they must sacrifice. They must be patient. They must understand that progress takes time. They must wait for the benefits to trickle down, for the promises to be fulfilled, for the wealth that is being extracted from their land to somehow, in some vague and distant future, become theirs again. They have been waiting for centuries. When we peer into the abyss of Mozambique, we see not merely a land ravaged by corruption, but a people brutalized by betrayal. It is an old betrayal, one that carries the cold bite of iron and the merciless hunger of predators who come with promises but leave only emptiness. We see the bloated men and women of Frelimo, their bellies filled with the meat of their own people, their eyes blinded by the gleam of foreign gold. They have made themselves overseers of a plantation born anew, masters not of crops, but of misery. They speak of progress and development, but what progress can there be when the soil itself cries out in agony? In Tata Province, where coal seeps from the earth like black blood, villages are uprooted, families scattered like ashes across barren ground. The land itself has been poisoned, the air fouled with dust, the streams turned to toxic veins running dry. The young cough themselves to death, the old fade without dignity, and the ministers of Maputo turn away, their wealth bought with the breath of children. But the crime runs deeper than poisoned soil. For northward, in the provinces of Cabo Delgado and Nampula, where minerals glint beneath fertile ground, another massacre unfolds. Foreign companies plunder the earth, tearing open the veins of the land, the riches borne away to feed distant empires. In return, Mozambique is left with the hollow carcass of its own promise. There are no factories to nurture the industry, no schools to kindle minds, and no hospitals to heal bodies broken by labor. Only the rattling convoys of trucks bearing treasure from a violated earth. It is a rape of resources, an assault upon dignity, a crime against generations yet unborn. The betrayal, deeper than mineral shafts or coal pits, festers within the corridors of power. Those who wear the colors of Mozambique's independence have twisted the very symbols of liberation into chains. Their betrayal is not simply economic, it is existential. It is the betrayal of memory, of identity, of humanity itself. To the youth of Mozambique, we speak to you in the language of burning flames of urgency. For burning flames of urgency is all that remains when everything else is stolen. You must reclaim what is yours, not through petition or appeal, but through resistance. Make them feel your rage as they have made you feel their neglect. Make them tremble. They will try to silence you. They will smear you as rebels, anarchists, vandals, barbarians, unruly menaces to society, and threats to the nation. But remember, their nation is built upon your bones. Their towers rise upon your buried hopes. The future is a battlefield, and it is yours to claim. We do not urge patience or offer promises of some distant peace. This is not only for the North, Center, or South. It is for all of Mozambique. It is for justice, dignity, and life itself. The time for silence has passed. Let your fury be the hammer that breaks Frelimo chains. If you found this video insightful, please leave us a comment. Also, press the like button, subscribe, and share. That way, we can continue to create more analytical content of this nature. Thank you for watching.